Oops. Hello, everyone. I am Rhonda. And over the past few weeks, this past 7 weeks, we built something intentionally. We started with clarity, we moved into control, then security, value extraction, automation, intelligence, leadership. And today, we close the loop because the most mature mobility environments don't just perform, they differentiate. So, mobility can either be infrastructure you manage or leverage that you use. Let's talk about the difference. This is week 8 of this series of Coffee Time. As I always say, my goal is very simple it is to make it make sense. Sip, sip. And we'll jump right in to close out this week on what every enterprise company needs to know, the state of managed mobility for 2026. As I've mentioned before, this is based on a playbook that we've offered complimentary as a download. All you need to do is DM me or get on my calendar and I'll get you a copy of that. So let's jump right in. All right, so today, the last day of this 8-week series is going to be about competitive advantage at scale. So, mobility now touches revenue continuity, workforce speed, customer experience, operational resilience. The question isn't whether mobility matters, it's whether mobility creates advantage. Advantage shows up in 3 ways: speed, stability, and strategic leverage. So let's talk about speed as a differentiator. So, speed as a differentiator, you got organizations with structured mobility environments. Let's see if I can squeeze in here a little bit. Yeah. You got organizations with structured mobility and environments that move faster, right? Faster provisioning, faster troubleshooting, faster development of initiatives. And that is just the state of life today, right? It's going to continue to move faster and faster. And it is imperative that organizations keep up with that speed. So when a new location opens, for example, it's operational immediately. When security policy shifts, enforcement updates across endpoints without chaos and as soon as humanly possible, or should we say as soon as AI possible. Speed compounds, reactive environments stall, structured environments accelerate, right? So you've got to keep it pushing, you've got to keep it moving. And acceleration is your competitive positioning. So faster deployment, faster enforcement, and faster recovery. And we'll move right along. Next slide. So speed as a differentiator. Now, stability as a trust signal. So you're talking about operational consistency. That's not a baseline expectation, but a signal of organizational maturity and leadership confidence. That's what we're looking for. Markets punish instability, right? We've already talked about downtime costs earlier in this series, but now look at it through a competitive lens. Stability wins contracts. Stability secures partnerships. Stability protects reputation. Mobility rarely fails loudly. And I've said this week over week over week, it rarely fails loudly. And sometimes it's not failure at all. It's underperformance, it's a lack of clarity. And when that underperformance happens, it generally happens quietly. And quiet instability erodes confidence over time. And people can see it and people can feel it, whether you know it or not. Stable mobility environments send a signal. The signal that you want to send is we are predictable. We are predictable, we are secure, we are prepared, and that builds market trust. So to ensure that your planned refresh cycles eliminate surprise costs and sustain performance benchmarks, enterprise-wide is where every enterprise wants to be in the current environment. We'll move right along because, as I mentioned, we always want to try to keep this 15 to 20 minutes or less if possible. So let's talk about strategic leverage. Excuse me. Strategic leverage. This is where advantage becomes visible. Structured environments create negotiation leverage, cost predictability, data intelligence, and life cycle precision. Across our engagement, we've helped organizations realize over $36.3 million in measurable impact and savings in the last 24 months. And here's what's consistent. Most enterprise environments uncover 8 to 15% optimization opportunity once governance, KPIs, and executive visibility are aligned. Not because they were failing, as I always say, but because complexity compounds at scale. And when that average happens, leverage compounds as well. So, like I said, negotiation leverage, let's talk about what that is. That's consolidated visibility, which transforms vendor conversations from reactive billing disputes to proactive contract control. Cost predictability, that's accurate, forward looking spend models, which eliminate budget surprises and build CFO confidence. And it's always great to build C level confidence in your organization. Then data intelligence, usage patterns, device behavior, and life cycle signals become strategic endpoints and not just noise. And some of you know what I'm talking about because you're dealing with this every day. And a lot of times when you're dealing with it, you don't want to admit the level of complexity around it or even the amount of pressure that it's causing you. But this is a reality for many organizations. And it's now is the time to take a deeper dive to look at this. You can get on my calendar. Let's do a brief assessment of your organization today and talk about how we walk you out of this situation. And then the last point on strategic leverage is life cycle precision. So orchestrated refresh timing, aligning capital expenditure with business cycles and not failure events. So the dividing line, right? Some organizations treat mobility as a cost center, and you can do that. And others treat it as enterprise performance architecture. One protects margin, and the other strengthens competitive positioning. Advantage still compounds, right? So, for those of you who follow this 8 week series, here's where this transition. I'm opening 5 competitive advantage architecture sessions this month. This is not operational review, it's strategic design. And in 20 minutes, we will evaluate where your mobility is accelerating performance, where instability could be limiting your growth, where leverage is underutilized, where executive visibility can sharpen advantage. By the end of that session, you'll know whether mobility is simply supporting operations or strengthening competitive position. If you'd like one of the 5 sessions, message me immediately. There is going to be a QR code available at the end of the session, which you can scan. You can always click the link in my bio on LinkedIn to get on my calendar. Either way, how you do it, if you want to message me, if that's fine as well, you can drop a note in this chat. Let's just get this moving for you and for your organization. So we'll move right along to the next slide as we get closer to closing this out. So we're talking about from managed to differentiated, right? And I've mentioned that a minute ago, there's a difference. You've got infrastructure and you've got advantage. So the organizations that lead do not simply manage mobility, they architect its competitive infrastructure. So infrastructure is mobility as a cost center, devices provisioned, tickets resolved, and spend tolerated. But advantage is mobility as a strategic lever, speed, stability, and intelligence compounding across scale. So you go from margin protection to market position to an architectural mobility designed intentionally, built to scale, adapt, and lead. This shift is from reactive to architectural, and it is a leadership decision, and it is available now. As I've mentioned, get on my calendar. Let's do the assessment. Let's walk you out of your current situation into an ideal, strategically aligned infrastructural situation. So this concludes the Foundational Coffee Time series today, but it does not end this conversation. It elevates it. It's time for the next step. It's time for the next level. Over the next quarter, I will be launching a more strategic executive focus series where mobility connects directly to AI enablement, enterprise scale, board level reporting. We'll even touch a little bit on performance architecture. That conversation will be more selective, more strategic, and designed for leaders thinking several moves ahead. So stay tuned. And as I've mentioned and continue to mention, mobility is no longer operational, it's architectural. So let's build accordingly. As I always say, my goal here has really been simple. We like to keep these conversations short and sweet. You can always catch the replay. You can get on my calendar to do a mobility assessment or just to talk about where things are. If you're interested in finding out how DMI can help your organizational's mobility and endpoint management align strategically, we're happy to talk about that and engage with you as partners. So on the next slide, you're going to see again that QR code, which will enable you to get on my calendar, to get a copy of the playbook, to talk, just have some casual conversation if you want about what's happening in your environment, some forward looking or forward thinking about what you guys are looking to do for the rest of 2026. If there's a way that we here at DMI can help support those priorities, I'm happy to do so. But my goal is really to just continue to bring thought leadership to the table around managed mobility and managed endpoints, and to continue to grow my relationship online with you. So until next time, I'll say thank you for sitting with me for 15 to 20 minutes a week through these sessions. If you missed one, please feel free to go catch it on the replay. And again, the next slide will give you offer a QR code where by which you can download our 2026 Managed Mobility Playbook. You can get on my calendar to do the assessment. As I mentioned, there's only 5 slots available. Looking forward to talking to you guys. Thank you again for your time, and sips up. That's good.